So this video is about how to act spontaneously, which is the same as saying how to act automatically. Now, Nisargadatta Maharaj was asked by one of his disciples during a satsang something about automatic action, and he was kind of he made like a negative statement about automatic action. And Nisargadatta Maharaj answered, what do you have against automatic action? And the reality is that automatic action or spontaneous action is a very good thing. But it requires a little bit of deprogramming, because we have been programmed into the opposite idea. The idea is that you should think before acting. And it's not that the advice has no value because it's referring to something slightly different, but it's very easy to misunderstand it and think that, spontaneous action, there is something wrong about it, and there is nothing wrong. It is extremely effective. It's the most effective action. Why? Because the action that is really spontaneous springs from consciousness itself. It does not spring from the mind. It does not come from your programs. When you act spontaneously, there is no thinking interfering with the action. The action comes directly from your true nature. So if you learn to function from that angle, functioning spontaneously, then your day will transpire in connection with true nature instead of the ego. Because most of the day, if you think about it, most of the day you are doing something, right? If that doing is arising from the mind and its agendas and programs and so on, that's not a spontaneous action. But if it's arising spontaneously, it's a way of being aligned with true nature, with consciousness. So you need to experiment with this until you begin to see and trust that spontaneous action is also effective action, and it's very effective. I had a little experience during childhood that I remember it through many, many decades, and it was intriguing to me because this was the experience. I was living in a farm. I grew up in a farm, and in farms, the animal life is considered something that you possess, and there's not much respect for it. So I grew up with those values, and I used to hunt, which is something I would never do today, but animal life was not something too valuable. And then what happened one day is that we were walking with some friends in a country, a golf country club that was nearby, and there was a swimming pool that was empty. It was a large swimming pool, and on the other side, there was at the bottom a little rat. And she had no way to come out of the trap she fell into. So it was an automatic reflex. I grabbed a stone that was on the floor, and it was a small stone, and I threw it to the animal, at a significant distance, and it hit it right in on the head and died instantly. So I was kind of surprised because I didn't know what I was doing really. I didn't have that intention perhaps, and but it was something that made me realize how it's possible to be so precise without even thinking about it, because it was a completely automatic action. Then later in life, I began to experiment with this and throwing objects, let's say, to the garbage can. And when the action was coming without thinking, and it was very fast, like grabbing a piece of paper and throwing it, sometimes at a long distance, it was falling right into the basket or the trash can. And if I was thinking about it before, even a little bit, then the results were poor. And I saw this through life over and over and over. And I began to understand it when I began to learn about Advaita, because Advaita explains this. The action that is really effective comes through consciousness, directly from consciousness. So when you don't think. So now the spontaneous action is valuable then not only because it's effective, but also because it keeps you in contact with your true nature instead of driving you away from it when the action is coming from the mind, the I, the me, and its agendas. So how can you develop this? How can you move more and more into spontaneous action and gradually leave behind the actions that are coming from the mind? Well, you just have to do it. You need to begin to experiment and also realize by yourself how effective it is, and put yourself in situations and conditions, or allow those conditions to arise so that are conducive to spontaneous action. This also keep in mind that is something that is already happening. There are for sure many actions that you are doing that you're doing them spontaneously. And the trouble is that you may not have given attention to the fact that it is when you act spontaneously that bingo, you hit target. So experiment and gradually move away from thinking before acting and just act directly from awareness. So let's say, for example, this conversation, right? Despite my difficulties with English, which is my second language, the presentation I'm doing is spontaneous. I have in front of me an outline so that I don't diverge too much into something different, but I'm not even following because if I try to follow it, then I mess up the presentation even more. So, but anyway, I'm going to look now into the into the next point in the outline to see what is it that I need to say, because I ran out of ideas already. Give attention, for example, to driving, right? Driving is an action that is really automatic when it's properly done. Now, this is even more notorious if you drive fast, because if you drive fast, because you have an urgency, for example, and you need to drive fast through the city, I'm not saying you do it, by the way, don't put yourself at risk, and others. But if by any chance you you had to do it, you will notice that the mind goes quiet, and the action springs from directly from consciousness. In fact, in all the sports where there is a risk involved, because of the risk, the mind stays away from the action, and the action is performed directly from consciousness. That's why people do risky sports, because it is extremely satisfying, the action, the present moment, when the mind is gone. And why the mind moves away from when there is risk? Because if you begin to think about it, it is worse. That risk may turn into disaster. So thinking has to move out, and you got to allow something wiser and more effective to take over. So go gradually, and also use a reminder, so that this watching this video doesn't end up, in being, oh, that's interesting, and that's it. Write down a little reminder, act spontaneously, and put it somewhere where you can see it, in your room, in your office. And then when you see that reminder, it will remind you to practice this. And you will see that when you practice it, it is like practicing the presence of the divine, because you are acting from silence, and therefore consciousness is present, your true nature is present, and the mind is out. The next thing is, this is a very interesting concept to consider. Look at how this happens in nature. Give attention to it. If you see action in nature by animals, for example, even plants and trees, they are functioning in a completely spontaneous way. And how is that? Well, the universe moves in a certain way, and the organism responds to that movement not from thinking, but it responds spontaneously. And everything in creation is moving spontaneously. As Nisargadatta Maharaj explained, that everything is happening automatically. It is our perception of our own doing that gives us the impression that we are not acting spontaneously. In the ultimate analysis, everything is spontaneously, because the mind and the ego, with its crooked programs, are part of nature. So everything is happening automatically is true anyway, but there is a pollutant factor there that is creating the illusion that you are acting from the me, and that is the problem. And all this thinking here makes action ineffective. It's like, let's say you have a crystal, and you send a light through that crystal. If it's not pure and transparent, the light that goes on the other side will be, distorted. Same thing happens with the action that comes from consciousness, which is trying to come through the mind-body organism, which is poorly programmed, and what comes on the other side is not perfect at all. Is polluted by the programs in the mind-body organism. The intention of consciousness is perfect. Consciousness doesn't make mistakes. The problem is, as that intention goes through the mind-body system, and that intention can be thwarted so much that, for example, you get a first intention or thought indicating go this way, and the mind says no, I'm going to go the other way, and then the original intention from consciousness, which is usually comes in the first thought, is distorted, and you choose the second thought. That's the reason for second guessing. The term second guessing is when you do second guessing, you will likely make a mistake. Okay. So nature is unfolding automatically. The organisms in nature are responding to that unfoldment. So, and human beings too. But the programs in the mind-body system are distorting the response to what is happening. If you remove those programs by making the mind silent and you act from consciousness, then everything is well. The response comes from consciousness, the movement in front comes from consciousness, and the whole universe, including you, are in harmony, moving in harmony. And this situation is conducive to realize the oneness of all, that everything is one. So karma yoga that aims at realizing that you are not the doer, that consciousness is the doer, is aiming in the end at oneness, because the universe is moving automatically, including now your actions, which are not yours. They are coming from consciousness. So everything's unfolding automatically. It's give you including your actions, give you very soon a sense of belonging and oneness with the universe. Let me see. Another point I want to mention is that's it. I hope this helps you. Please, if you are interested in this type of subjects, subscribe to the channel. That will help you to get more videos like this. Consider also watching the Spanish version of this video. Why? Because I always produce one video in English and one video in Spanish. But Spanish is my first language, so it's easier. And they usually come a little better. And then you may find also different concepts around the same subject, but slightly different concepts in both versions, Spanish and English. And today it's very easy to translate to any video in Spanish to English using subtitles, or even doubling the voice with the Google, the YouTube player. So subscribe to the channel if you're interested in Advaita. Consider also sharing this video. Why? Because, well, the world needs to wake up to true nature, to our true nature. Because as long as we are functioning from programs and from the ego, there will be wars, disasters, and so on. So political measures or policies may help somewhat, but they are not that effective. There has to be a movement from functioning from the ego that leads to wars and so on, to functioning from consciousness. So you may share this video. The other thing is consider liking the video if you like it. Otherwise, don't do anything. And then let me see. The last thing is that's it. Subscribe, share, like it, and my information will be down below. If you are interested in awakening, I always leave at the end of the description of the video a link that goes to the awakening protocol. Can it help? Yes, a lot. It can help. It can help you to take the step, to get the breakthrough from imagining and believing that you are a little self, a me, here separated from the world, to realizing that in the mind-body organism there is only consciousness. There is no me. The me is a thought. So the awakening protocol is helpful to realize that, to wake up from the dream of the eye. The job is not finished, but it's a great stepping stone. The link will be at the end of the description of this video. Read the description of the video, because I'm putting more energy and attention to those descriptions so that whoever reads it can benefit from it also and reinforce the ideas that I'm presenting in the video. And I leave you also my email in the same place, in case that you want to do coaching sessions to prepare yourself for awakening, or to embody the awakening if in your case it has already happened. Take care and have a good one.